Thank you for attending the virtual roadshow, and I'm talking to Jeremy Lang from Business Partners. Jeremy, the fact that Business Partners is so well established must make a major difference in terms of the assistance you can offer businesses of all sizes.
Yes, Business Partners has in fact been in existence since 1981, so our 40-year anniversary this year, and we financed well over 71,000 businesses, placing about 20 billion rand, just over 20 billion rand in the ecosystem of entrepreneurship. So I think acknowledging that 40 years and still around to tell the tale, I think we know a bit about SMEs and what they need and how they need it, and certainly engaging with them, funding them, investing in them. We understand really well what SMEs need, and on the basis in which they need it. Cash flow is obviously a big need, and remains even more so relevant today during the COVID pandemic. But I think engaging with business partners and organizations like us, we really can add a lot of value in your business itself by considering the funding needs that your business may have, and also how to make your business better going forward.
Can you give us a snapshot of who can come to you to ask for financial help?
The funding landscape is quite diverse and complex, and often entrepreneurs don't know who to go to based on their funding needs. So the funding landscape consists of various funders playing different roles. Some fund very early stage at concept or design stage, others only fund pre-revenue, post-revenue, maybe a 2 or 3 year track record. Others fund in specific industries and they have specific mandates within those industries. And others fund at different funding transaction sizes. So from venture capital, mezzanine finance, private equity, and then the listed markets and capital markets. So for an entrepreneur to navigate through all of that is sometimes very complex. So I would strongly suggest that do a little bit of homework on the funding need that you have. Do I need debt? Do I need equity? What kind of debt or equity do I need? And what level of risk is the funder willing to take that I need to approach? And that will narrow down your list of funders to maybe a more a level that's maybe more probable and improves your chances of being successful. So that's really key. At Business Partners, we fund formal small and medium enterprises. There's got to be an entrepreneur behind the business. It's got to be a formal business. No turnover or job number or employee number minimum requirements. It's got to be a viable formal SME with a minimum funding need of $500,000 rand. But we are only one player in this ecosystem. Many other funders have their own criteria. So it helps to do a little bit of work to narrow down your chances or improve your chances of being successful. It's very few businesses that can grow without needing more capital. So we term it that they can grow organically. So most businesses, as they grow, continually need funding. Some clients grow beyond our ability to offer them. They grow so big that it's now time to go into the broader market, banks, maybe even capital markets, private equity markets. But then our role in that business has come to an end to some extent. However, most of the businesses, as they continue to grow in a step to phased approach, continue to need funding, and we support them. We're not only allowed to do one transaction with a client. We've got clients who we've done 7, 8, 9, 10 transactions with them as they continue to grow. So that's very much part of our philosophy. We like to walk a road with an entrepreneur. Over time, it also reduces our risk because we get to know the entrepreneur and the client and the SME better and better. So it does impact and mitigate some of our risk. But a high conversion ratio beyond the first deal, first transaction, into doing more and more transactions with that client. We wear a few hats in the SME space. One is we like to see ourselves as advocates for SMEs, lobbying on their behalf in the greater ecosystem. We do fund. That's a big part of our activity. We don't take an operational involvement in the business, but we like to see entrepreneurs thrive. So beyond investing in them through cash or otherwise, we also provide support in the form of technical assistance, mentorship, etc. Entrepreneurs, by their very nature, it's very difficult to come in as an institutional investor into an entrepreneurial business because you may take away a lot of the flavor that exists through that entrepreneurial DNA in that business. So we tend not to take an operational role in the business. We keep a professional distance, but we do keep an eye on the business. We meet with our clients on a regular basis, understand their needs. So from implementing, in addition to the funding, implementing financial management systems, maybe compliances such as ISO or HACCP, those open up new markets for clients. So in that way, we try and make over and above the funding, we try and make the business better in that it stands a better chance to grow through some interventions, whatever we believe is needed. So those are some of the things that we do. We also have a very big property portfolio, which we own, and we actually let out to SMEs. So we provide infrastructure from which they can trade, and that ranges from industrial, commercial, to retail, etc. So that's another way in which we support SMEs as well.
What are some of the really big ways that small businesses benefit from working with business partners?
Partnering with business partners is not going to guarantee you success. In fact, we rely a lot on the entrepreneur that we assess in terms of their technical skill set, their business acumen, their passion, their drive, their vision for the business. That is a huge part of the success. We can facilitate the growth through providing support and funding, but ultimately the entrepreneur is absolutely key in taking that business forward. So I think from that point of view, don't rely on business partners to get you there, but we can certainly help you along the way. And I think that's a good institutional partner to have. Let me put it this way: a good business in the wrong hands, we won't fund, or we would be unlikely to fund. A reasonably good business in great hands, that's the entrepreneurs that we want to back. So full of energy, full of vision, full of passion, wants to take their business to the next level, wants to create this empire, wants to employ jobs, wants to have this impact in society. Those are the entrepreneurs that we really look to back. Yes, I mean, ultimately, we don't want to force entrepreneurs into a direction they don't want to go, and generally, they find themselves in industries they very much love. So, not to a large extent, no. Certainly, within their business, we've given them and spotted some risks and gaps that we think they should look at, and that has improved their businesses, certainly from improving margins to bettering their administration to getting some of these compliance measures in place. Those and the empirical evidence proves that where we've provided such technical assistance, turnover levels are better, more jobs are created, profit levels are better, and even to the extent that the way in which they conduct and repay their obligations back to business partners are better. So there's a definite benefit in taking on that kind of advice. Sure, some entrepreneurs, they don't want to go that route. They know what they need to know. They just need funding. But for others who are keen on exploring that opportunity, it does add a lot of benefit and value to the business.
A lot of small business owners seem to focus on just getting some cash in, or a loan, or an investor. What is your message to them?
That's a very interesting question. We face a bigger problem in the broader South African economy that we can't grow, right? And that's been a pre-COVID problem, right? So if the pie is not getting any bigger within South Africa, and it's going to take time to fix that, then surely we should start looking at markets beyond South African borders, and we make good enough products and services to take abroad. So, but there is some anxiety sometimes from entrepreneurs because they go into markets they don't necessarily understand, and they're a bit anxious, and they don't really have the reserves to be making big mistakes. So if I had my magic wand, it was to create a platform to upskill entrepreneurs, to take their products and markets across our borders into a global market, and we can compete at that level if we're able to create products and services that can compete on price and quality in those markets, and I think we can. So therein lies a big step up, if we want to put it that way, if we can't get the growth within the economy necessarily. Yeah, Africa, very much an opportunity for South Africa to take its product, as I mentioned earlier, beyond our borders. There are African free trade agreements and all of these agreements in place that does make it easier to trade without too much costs. A huge market. If you go into some of those countries, I haven't been to all of them, but I've been to some of them. Very unsophisticated markets, but a big consumer market. So they're importing a lot of their goods and services, and we manufacture a lot of that can be used there. Other countries, other continents, China and the likes, are also looking to Africa, very much as we are. But I do think we make good enough products and services at a competitive price to be able to take there, and a huge consumer market, I must say. So I see lots of opportunity there. Looking from the entrepreneurial activity in Africa, looking outward from Africa, lots of opportunity for technological innovation. There's lots of established industry, but very old mechanical ways of doing things, and I think technology can help a lot, but you need capital investment to be able to do that. But really strong entrepreneurial activity, really good profile, well educated entrepreneurs of a good caliber, I must say, that I've met and come across. So I'm hopeful for Africa very much. One needs to do a lot of homework. I would strongly suggest actually physically going to visit, maybe not in the current environment, but as soon as you can. Understand the landscape, develop networks in that country, understand the political landscape in that country, the culture, the people, and set up really strong networks there. I would also use a local professional, whether it's a Ford freight company or other technical skills relative to that kind of activity. Don't take risks on your own. Walk the road with those who know and understand, and also partners. Maybe you can piggyback off another company that is also exporting product that's happy to take your product on board in their suite of products. So that way you also, yes, maybe you give up some margin, but you take away a lot of the risk. So those are some of the key aspects and attributes. And then also your ability to manage the administration process. It can become quite cumbersome. So make sure you've got all the resources and capacity on board to be able to execute that. Maybe start smaller. Don't go and take one big contract or one big order. Start smaller, get to know the systems, get to know the people and the processes, and from there you can build slower. Oh, yes, absolutely. I think if you just take a peek into some of the statistics, contributing around about a third to our country's gross domestic product, employing a significant amount in excess of 60% of the labor force. And that's certainly the sector in which we believe future job creation will also be solved to a great part rather than the big corporates. So from that perspective, really, really important in the context of South Africa, it is also a channel in which entrepreneurs, those maybe that are coming out of previously disadvantaged backgrounds, it is a channel in which they can start to participate in the economic activity of the country. So really, really important. If you look abroad beyond the borders of South Africa, the entrepreneurial level of activity is actually still below some of the other countries, which means there's still potential for more entrepreneurs to come through into the SME sector. Yes, no doubt. I struggle to think of one SME that was not affected by COVID, or even any of us living in the country, but significant impact, negative impact. Some industries more than others. If you take a look at, if you take a bit of a dive into the different sectors, and still relevant today, tourism, hospitality, events, even education to some extent, really decimated in terms of their turnover levels, profitability, and so on. Others are recovering slow, but it is progressive. Manufacturing, retail, services, healthcare seem to be recovering well. But the problem is that SMEs don't have the reserves or financial muscle that corporates necessarily have, and therefore their reserves was quickly depleted, and many of them needed to reach out into the market to funders, various relief programs to try and assist them. Firstly, during the hard lockdown, to cover their fixed overheads, the big ones such as their rent for their premises, other costs like insurance, the wage bill was a big one. And there were various schemes that were quickly developed within the industry, both from the private and public sector, to try and assist SMEs in covering their fixed overheads during the hard lockdown. But while this was not enough, businesses also started to use their working capital that they actually needed to trade, that they started to use that to also cover fixed overhead. So we see, as they're coming out of the second lockdown into the third wave now, there's a dire need for liquidity injection back into these businesses to replenish the working capital that they've used to now start trading again. Liquidity, big problem at the moment. Debtors are paying late. It's not so easy to get your hands on facilities and get them approved. So SMEs continue to struggle going forward for at least the short term. Yes, I mean, there's no doubt that the reality was that they suffered quite a bit. But SMEs, by their very nature, are optimists and are problem solvers. So what you start to find is that they look, and that's one of the fantastic advantages of SMEs, that they're quite agile. You don't need to sit in a corporate strategy around a big boardroom to make a decision. Entrepreneurs within a few hours can make decisions and change tact and change strategy. So you would have seen a few of that, new products being evolved, maybe using their resources, their assets for different reasons. I remember the one example of the bottles business was that they suddenly changed from this transportation business into this grocery delivery business for Pick and Pay. And Pick and Pay actually bought it in the end. So there was some really great stories that came out of it. But absolutely, innovation, reuse of assets, repurposing of assets, opening of new markets. Some jumped on the PPE bandwagon, and there were some opportunities. So, and I'm not surprised to see that, because it's in their DNA, right? So, that gave me a lot of hope, I must say, that within all the challenges we face, remains opportunities, and that's very positive to see entrepreneurs still fighting that good fight, and trying to preserve jobs was key for them. They acknowledge themselves as an employer, and doing everything they can to preserve jobs as far as possible, while still maintaining or sustaining the business, allowing it to continue to trade. So a bit of a mixed bag of everything, but on top of all of that, I must say I'm very hopeful and impressed with the way entrepreneurs have stepped up.
Can you share some success stories of companies you have helped to grow?
I mean, there was businesses that I've seen from operating out of a garage, manufacturing maybe toilet paper, to walking that road with that client, and them ultimately owning their own paper mill, manufacturing their own paper, recycling their own paper to be able to and I'm talking on a massive scale. So those are some of the really great case studies, and we've got many of them. That's that gives me satisfaction every day, being part of a journey with an entrepreneur, seeing them grow, seeing them create this business empire that they dreamed of, and that's absolutely satisfying. On the second point to your question is, we have had our own relief program for our clients in Business Partners, and that consisted of allowing clients payment relief. That was the one arm, where they have obligation to Business Partners to repay the loan, and said, hey, rather don't pay us, make sure you pay your wages, make sure you pay your rent, make sure that you keep the overheads. We will sit a little bit back and give you that opportunity and unlock cash flow in that way. The second one was, we had a very specific relief program where payment relief wasn't enough and the business actually needed a capital injection. And those loans we turned around within a week, approved and paid out. So really quickly we did that. And the last one, which is active now at the moment, which I mentioned earlier, as businesses start to come out of the lockdown, and the second wave, now moving into the third wave, I guess. But there was that liquidity need for working capital. They were trading, but it's like they were walking through mud, that they just needed that injection to lift them out. And that's currently a program that's underway, also very successful. And the feedback from clients speaks for itself. They were able to keep their doors open. At some point, it was about survival. Now it's less about survival, but more how do we get to pre-COVID levels of trading. So those are some of the examples of the things that we did, certainly for our client base. Yeah, distributing to manufacturing, two very different businesses. So manufacturing comes with very different risks, very different value chain, and so on. Manufacturing is the one. Why I'm so fond of manufacturing personally is that it adds real value. It creates lots of jobs, so it really starts to absorb a lot of citizens, working citizens, into the economy and allowing them to participate in the economy. One constraint, though, Simon, that's electricity. It's a big problem. It's in the news every day for the last week. We need to fix our electricity problem, because the manufacturing sector and others, but more so manufacturing, cannot grow if we can't fix the electricity problem. So find a manufacturing business that's not necessarily too electricity heavy, or you have alternative sources of energy to support you in manufacturing. So it's a place where margins are normally good. It comes with a lot of pains. It comes with a lot of work. It's hard work manufacturing, but lots of the rewards are absolutely worth it in terms of value you can create, wealth you can create, and also job you can create. So a very important part of our economy. Yes.
What is the best advice for any small business or SMME owner?
I think if we look beyond COVID, because that's really the view you're giving me at the moment, is that there still remains within the sectors very good opportunities. I mean, we are funding, we approve over R1 billion a year to SMEs to be able to take use of these opportunities, right? So my first word of advice is stick to an industry that you know and you know well. These kind of industry tips and tricks and things that you really need to know, and you can't make big mistakes in an industry you don't know. So that's my first word of caution. Or if it's an industry you don't know, make sure you spend enough time in that industry before you actually go and invest in it. Across the various sectors, there remains good opportunity. We're an industry that's of course, we see a lot of component manufacturing, repairs for the mines, in the tourism industry, still very good opportunity. Manufacturing still really good. But if you look at how our economies evolved over the last 20 years or so, we're actually moving from a resource manufacturing-based economy, which we see as primary, to a service-based economy. So now that all the infrastructure is in place, now we need to start servicing this infrastructure. So lots of opportunity on the service-based type of businesses. We see lots of opportunity in the fintech space, technology, and not so much just an industry, but how you set up your business from a digital interface point of view. All of those kinds of opportunities now start to evolve. During COVID, the one positive that's come out is that suddenly everybody's got an online platform you can trade from, and there's been very good processes and applications that's been developed. And I think that's going to make a big difference in our economy going forward. Suddenly you can trade between Cape Town and Durban very easily on opposite sides of the country. So those are some of the opportunities within the existing industries that already exist. So it's really think carefully about what industry you want to get into, understand the market and opportunity very, very clearly, and mitigate risk very well. Sometimes entrepreneurs are quite aggressive and, they want to run, the horse wants to go. Sometimes they just need to be held back a little bit to understand the risk they're actually taking. So in short, there remains good opportunity in most of the industries in South Africa, ranging from mining, agriculture, through to retail, online businesses, service-based businesses, healthcare, education. We see a huge opportunity as the LSM levels start to grow in the middle class. They are looking for better than the public offering, but maybe not the Curos of this world. So there's this middle tier private school market, and that needs to be serviced. And so those kinds of opportunities, if you start to understand what's happening in the economy from that perspective, what the demographics looks like, it kind of points you in certain directions to where the opportunities may lie. Yes, I think be involved in your business. The ones that are involved every day, 8 or 10 or 15 hours a day, they do perform better. The ones that are on the golf course 3 times a week, maybe not necessarily the case. So be involved in your business. Understand your liquidity position. Sometimes money in the bank is not necessarily a reflection of your liquidity position, because it may be owed to the tax man and all sorts of things. So understand your liquidity very, very well. Plan. Very difficult at the moment, because the law basically changes on a daily basis in terms of your ability to trade and curfews and a whole range of things. So be aware of your environment, how that's changing and how that impacts you. The world is small now. You can't think that what happens in America and China doesn't impact you anymore. It absolutely does. You can't think that what our own economic and political landscape doesn't impact on you. It absolutely does. So you need to become a lot more business, economic, political savvy than previously. So you need to understand that entire environment. So So between those things, and then surround yourself with really good people, staff, management, suppliers, um, clients, and then we've become a very, very client-centric global economy. A lot is around. People are choosing to do business with you on how you treat them, not necessarily what you charge them. So those are some of the key aspects. I guess we can have a conversation about this all day, but those are some of the more key aspects. Yeah.
Can you run us through some of the big mistakes you see small business owners making over and over again?
Yeah, no, sure. The one that's certainly very prominent is liquidity. They're not planning well enough to make sure that there may be liquidity gaps, and if they are, get facilities in place proactively. Nobody wants to fund a bad business, right? So make sure that that's in place before the time, and that all comes into account with planning and budgeting. Also, have a look at client concentration risk. Some businesses are built fairly sizable business on one or two clients. They lose the contract, the manager changes. So that's really important. Also, those SMEs who build their business on doing business with government and government departments, build in an extra month or two for delayed payments. Some departments are better than others, but I've seen businesses fall because they just can't get the money in on time. So those are some of the more key ones that I'm seeing at the moment. Yes. And of course, never ever stop looking for opportunity. Never ever stop marketing your business. It's really important.
What is a big shiny yes flag that they have what it takes to make their business work?
Okay, so it's something we call entrepreneurial flair, right? It's when they light up, when they talk about the industry or their business and they've got this big dream. There's normally a core underlying purpose about the job that the business that they have. So what is that purpose behind just selling wheels to railway manufacturers? So understanding what that is, that's really important. The second one is, do they understand the key metrics and indicators of their business? We as a funder, we know the margins in this industry should be this, and your wage to turnover ratio should be this, and your rent to we know that. Does the entrepreneur know it? And that's some of the tests that we do. And you get very quickly a good sense whether an entrepreneur has his finger on the pulse or whether you should be concerned about how much does this entrepreneur really know about their business. And when there are problems, will they find out too late? Or are they really on top of it and can solve it very quickly? So their problem solving ability, their understanding of the key indicators in the business, and their energy and passion around the business.
What suggestions do you have for small business owners to consider before contacting you to ensure that they are able to best impress business partners?
Yes, I think some of the reasons, the common reasons that funding is being declined, maybe I can offer some tips there. The one is have up-to-date financials, have up-to-date management accounts, signed off financials. Funders are not going to fund you on a year-old, 6-month-old financial. So make sure that that's up-to-date, that it's correct, that it's accurate. That's key. The second one is the compliance and tax issues. Make sure your taxes are up-to-date. Most funders will request tax statements, tax clearance certificates, and so on. So make sure that your compliance, your CIPC fees are paid, and so on. So that's really important. Most funders will need a cash flow forecast, one that's been well thought through. The impact that the funding will have is incorporated in that cash flow. And then lastly, do your homework about the funder to make sure that you pitch your application relative to what that funder is looking to fund. Let me give you an example. Many of the development financial institutions, like the NEF, like the IDC, like CIFA, and the rest, there's a strong impact motive to their investments in SMEs. So if you cannot illustrate that, if you're just coming there, I'm going to make so much money, maybe they're not going to be that interested. Whereas a bank want to make sure that you can, although there are impact measures, but commercial funders are generally more interested in that you can make that money, it's reasonable, it's probable, and you can afford to pay the loan back. So some have a blend, like business partners have a hybrid of both. So those are some of the key things you need to understand before approaching a funder to inquire or apply for funding. Then be honest and open with everything. whether you've been in trouble before, whether you're currently in trouble, they will do a lot of work around that, and it speaks to your integrity of how transparent you are in your disclosures to the funder. That's another key aspect. So those are some of the aspects, and be professional, submit whatever they need timeously, so that they don't close the application while they're waiting for information.
Thanks for your time, Jeremy, and for the great work you and business partners do for the business community and for our economy.
Thanks very much, and to the entrepreneurs, don't give up as tough as times may see. We need you, our country needs you, so all the best to you as well.
That was Jeremy Lang from Business Partners.